The priority lane buzzed with the low thrum of boarding calls when the gate agent stepped directly into his path. "Sir, diamond tier only," Melissa said, her eyes sweeping over his hoodie, his carry-on, then back to his face, ignoring the a diamond marker he was already holding. The overhead chime announced, "Priority boarding closes in 7 minutes." Passengers shifted anxiously. The line tightened. He offered the marker and his boarding pass, calm, practiced. But Melissa didn't take them. Instead, she tilted her head, frowning, as if solving a puzzle that shouldn't exist. "Are you sure this is yours?" A few people glanced over. One man smirked. Near the stanchions, a business analyst lifted his phone, whispering into a quietly growing live stream. "He literally has the diamond tag and she still stopped him." Melissa folded her arms, blocking the lane. "Please, step aside for verification." And just like that, the world judged him before the system ever did. Have you ever watched someone be told they didn't belong when every part of you knew they did? Before we go deeper, tell me, where in the world are you listening from right now? And if stories about dignity, justice, and accountability resonate with you, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next chapter. All right, take a breath. What happens after this moment is where everything truly begins. Melissa didn't step aside. If anything, she leaned farther into the priority lane, as if her body alone could enforce the hierarchy printed on the signage behind her. "Diamond tier passengers only," she repeated, this time projecting her voice so the people in line could hear. A few heads turned, some with curiosity, some with mild annoyance, and some those were the ones he felt the most carried, a quiet satisfaction, the kind reserved for moments when the world stays exactly as they think it should. He held up the a diamond marker again, steady and unobtrusive. "I am diamond tier," he said. "I'd like to board." Melissa's eyes flicked to the marker, then back to his face. The marker meant nothing to her. "Sir, diamond tier clients typically check in at Terminal North or receive an escort. You came through regular screening." Her smile was polite. Her meaning wasn't. Jordan, still recording from the right side of the lane, whispered to his stream of a few hundred viewers now. "That's not a rule. She's improvising." Behind Melissa, a blond man in a navy suit approached, rolling a Rimowa carry-on. Ethan Lowell, his badge tag glowed Diamond Elite, barely glanced at the CEO before saying, "Excuse me, I'm in 1C. Melissa lit up. "Yes, of course, Mr. Lowell." She lifted the stanchion rope, gesturing him through with the fluid assurance of someone who knew exactly who belonged where. But Ethan hesitated. His eyes flitted toward the CEO, then away quickly, as if holding the gaze too long would imply agreement with him. He slid into the jet bridge line without another word. Melissa lowered the rope again. "Sir," she said, recentering her authority, "if you don't qualify, business class is boarding soon. You won't lose your seat entirely." Not entirely. The phrasing struck him with a hollow thud. It wasn't anger he felt, it was the familiar flattening sensation of being misplaced in someone else's hierarchy. The airport fluorescents shimmered across the polished floor. A cluster of flight attendants walked past, their shoes clicking sharply, boarding announcements echoing faintly through the hall. Everything continued normally, except the part of the world Melissa had cordoned off just for him. Jordan stepped a little closer, framing the scene for his live stream. "This is Class Bias 101, he murmured. "She's assuming he doesn't belong because he didn't show up with the right aesthetic." He wasn't wrong. Melissa pulled out her tablet, tapping rapidly. "Let me just confirm your tier level." "I've already been verified," he replied. "Yes, but sometimes the system needs manual correction, you understand." She said it as if he shouldn't. Her screen glowed faintly. He could see the shadow of the loyalty tier interface, though not the details. Melissa squinted, then frowned. "Well, it's not showing your status here. It might be a temporary mismatch." Jordan's voice grew more animated for his viewers. Now almost 3,000. "She hasn't scanned anything. She's just looking for a justification. Melissa closed the tablet sharply. I'll need to mark you for business until we finish the review. Before he could respond, she grabbed a business hold sticker from her lanyard and slapped it onto his boarding pass right over the printed 1A. The adhesive sound soft, insignificant, hit harder than the gesture itself. Passengers nearby averted their eyes. Not in protest. In compliance with the unspoken rule, whatever is happening is probably his fault. He looked down at the sticker, then at Melissa. Her smile was crisp, final, a subtle proclamation of authority exercised. Please step out of the priority lane, she said. Jordan zoomed in on the sticker for his viewers. Wow, she literally downgraded him without proof. A new wave of comments scrolled rapidly across Jordan's phone. Classism much? What is she doing? He's so calm. Why's she acting like he's intruding? Show us the system. The CEO lifted his eyes, not with defiance, but with clarity. He recognized a pattern when he saw one. Systems, airline or otherwise, never broke cleanly. They buckled first through people. He spoke quietly, his voice measured. I didn't ask for business class. I asked for the seat I paid for. Melissa's expression hardened, polite veneer cracking just slightly. Well, she said, tapping the sticker once, as if cementing it further. That's not the seat you have anymore. Her words turned the space around him into something small, airless. And for the first time, he felt the faint beginning of what the next beats would become. Not resistance. Not confrontation. Escalation. The kind that starts subtly, one misplaced assumption at a time, until the entire structure tilts. He stepped aside, not in surrender, but because the moment demanded observation, not reaction. Jordan whispered into the livestream. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I can feel it. He wasn't wrong. The gate lights dimmed slightly as another announcement rolled through the terminal speakers. Final call. Diamond tier verification must complete within 5 minutes. The countdown dropped into the space beside him like a stone. Melissa seized on it instantly. Sir, she said, adopting a softened, almost maternal tone, let's not make this a bigger issue than it needs to be. We just need you to calm down. He wasn't raising his voice. He wasn't gesturing. He wasn't even frowning. But the way she said it, calm down, rewrote the moment, as if he had been the one creating tension. A subtle reframing. A familiar one. Passengers nearby shifted in their shoes. When someone is told to calm down, social instinct pushes everyone else to agree that something must be wrong. Jordan's livestream ballooned past 5,000 viewers. He angled his camera toward the CEO. Folks, he's literally just standing there, he whispered. But listen to her tone. The CEO took out his wallet to retrieve his boarding pass again. As he did, a corner of his executive biometric ID card slid into view, sleek matte black with a coded GX01 inscription at the edge. Jordan zoomed in. Huh, he murmured to his audience. That's not a regular corporate badge. But Melissa didn't notice. She was too busy reasserting control. Let's be reasonable, she said, using that practiced airline staff cadence. You're holding up priority processing. He glanced around. The line was moving fine until she'd stopped him. But perception wasn't built on truth. It was built on tone. He met her gaze. My verification should be in the system. Show it to me. Melissa clicked open her tablet again and angled it away from him, shielding the screen with her body. I don't have to show you internal logs, she said sharply. That's proprietary system data. Jordan's audience erupted in text streaming up the screen. If she's right, why hide it? Let him see it. Override code? This smells like favoritism. He noticed another thing. The tablet interface flashed the corner of a yellow banner, something he recognized from his years designing operational review protocols. He leaned slightly to see it better. That flag, he said quietly, shouldn't appear without ops pre-clearance. Melissa snorted. Sir, You don't get to decide how the airline system works. Jordan's eyebrows shot up. He didn't say he decides it, he said he knows it. The CEO allowed himself a breath. He had lived enough years in the industry to recognize the shape of a procedural lie. This wasn't confusion. This was comfort with a hierarchy she thought she was protecting. Melissa flicked her wrist and closed the tablet decisively. Regardless, she said, we're not waiting any longer. You will move to business while we sort this out. Please cooperate. The please was an order pressed into velvet. He felt the tension not from anger, but from the recognition that everyone now expected him to surrender simply to keep the peace. A father behind him muttered, "Just go to business, man. You're slowing everyone down." Another traveler whispered loudly, "Why make a scene? If he really belonged in Diamond, they'd know." The CEO inhaled slowly. He looked at Melissa, at the tablet she refused to share, at the sticker still plastered over his 1A, at the passengers eager to restore their own comfort at the expense of his dignity. Then, he said, with calm precision, "I am asking you to follow the procedure you claim to uphold." Melissa stepped closer, lowering her voice but raising her intensity. "You are this close to escalating this situation. Stop arguing and move." A classic gendered reframing. Assertiveness, aggression. Professional knowledge belligerence. The livestream comments exploded. She's gaslighting him. He's literally whispering. This is bias on display. Jordan added, "You're all seeing this, right? She's inventing the narrative as she goes." Melissa shot him a glare. "Turn that off or I'll call security." "You can call whoever you want," Jordan said, still filming. "But 6,000 people are watching. They see everything." The CEO straightened, not taller, but steadier. A shift barely visible, but powerful enough that Jordan's viewers noticed immediately. He spoke again, quiet, measured, undeniable. "If your system is correct," he said, "then transparency shouldn't frighten you." Melissa froze. The line trembled around them, uncertain whether to fall silent or fall apart. And above them, the gate announcement chimed once more, cold and indifferent. Final verification must complete within 5 minutes. Escalation was no longer subtle. It was alive, breathing through the terminal, gathering weight. He stepped out of the priority lane, but not far, just enough for the crowd's expectation to loosen its grip from his shoulders. For the first time since Melissa stopped him, the terminal noise thinned. The hum of distant escalators, the intermittent roll of suitcase wheels, even the chatter of gate announcements, seemed to drift into a softer register, like someone had turned a dimmer on the world. Jordan lowered his phone. "Let's give him a moment," he murmured to the stream before muting the audio. Viewer comments froze on screen, suspended mid-surge. It felt strangely merciful. The CEO looked down at the diamond tier marker resting in his palm. A small, elegant piece of brushed metal, something meant to signal belonging, priority, earned trust within the system. Now it looked like a prop, a badge whose authority evaporated the moment someone decided it didn't match the man holding it. He turned it slowly between his fingers. The edges were cool, grounding. It reminded him of the first time his father held a boarding card to a job interview on a different airline, one he never made, because a gate agent had misread his credentials too. One decision, one assumption, had reshaped everything that happened after. "Is he still standing there?" someone whispered behind him. "He should just sit and wait. He's in the wrong class anyway." Their voices weren't cruel, just careless, casual judgments made by people who would forget him the moment they boarded. But he heard every syllable. Near the counter, Melissa leaned toward her supervisor, Sandra Kim. "He's making this complicated," Melissa muttered. Sandra sighed, the kind of sigh that framed the CEO as the problem before the facts even entered the room. "Men get upset so easily around upgrades," she said, as if his calm endurance were a tantrum she'd wisely contained. He exhaled gently through his nose. Not in frustration he'd grown resistant to these patterns, but in calibration, adjusting to the corridor of assumptions closing around him. Far ahead, through the gate window, he saw the aircraft parked at the jet bridge. The nose cone glistened in the afternoon light. That aircraft was supposed to take him to a meeting where decisions about global safety protocols would be made decisions he had spent the last year shaping. He wondered how many people on this very flight would be protected by those policies one day. "Hey," Jordan said softly, approaching without filming now. "Are you okay?" He appreciated the question's sincerity. Most people, when confronted with wrongdoing, looked away. Jordan, at least, kept his eyes open. "I'm fine," the CEO answered. "Just thinking." "You were right about that code she hid," Jordan said. "I've traveled enough to know override flags aren't random." He nodded once, acknowledging both the truth and the risk. If he pushed too hard, he'd be framed as the aggressor. If he didn't push at all, the system would rewrite him as someone unqualified for the seat he rightfully held. It was a narrow walkway he knew too well. Jordan hesitated. "You want me to stop recording? I will, if it makes this easier." "No," he said quietly. "Let the truth stay where it can be seen." Jordan reactivated the live stream but pointed the camera downward, giving him space. Comments resumed, but slower now, more human. "He looks exhausted. Give the man his seat. This is so unfair." The CEO looked toward the counter again. Melissa and Sandra had retreated into a huddle with the tablet between them, their posture unmistakably self-protective. Not problem-solving, problem-managing. He wondered whether they understood how visible their discomfort was. How clearly the live stream caught every gesture, every whispered word, every attempt to justify what had started as bias and was evolving into something institutional. Something systemic. He rolled the diamond marker once more between his fingers. The brushed metal caught the light, flashing a muted glint that mirrored the ID card tucked back inside his wallet, the one Jordan's camera had spotted earlier. 2 pieces of proof, neither recognized by the people claiming authority. He wasn't angry. He was waiting for the moment when this quiet, uneasy space would rupture, because it always did. Breathing space was only ever temporary in stories like this. Sandra stepped forward with the easy authority of someone used to ending conversations, not starting them. Her uniform was immaculate, every line pressed razor sharp. Even her posture conveyed hierarchy. "Sir," she began with a gentle managerial smile, "gentlemen understand procedure. Please don't make this more difficult." There it was, the gender layer sliding in with the softness of a blade wrapped in silk. A tone that shifted responsibility onto him for the discomfort they had created. Behind her, Melissa raised the business class tag she had stuck on his boarding pass as if presenting physical evidence of his supposed misalignment. "He's refusing reassignment," she announced, loud enough for the passengers in the boarding zone to hear. A few travelers murmured. Not maliciously, just performatively inconvenienced. The kind of people who would apologize to a crooked signpost for bumping into it, but feel none of that softness for a man being mistreated right in front of them. Jordan lifted his phone again, live stream reactivated. The count shot from 15,000 to 22,000 inches seconds. "Everyone, look how she's reframing it," he narrated. "He's being polite. They're calling him unreasonable." Sandra crossed her arms, tablet in hand. "I need you to move to business now," she repeated, "or we'll delay every other passenger." He blinked once. A small, almost imperceptible motion shock, not at her ultimatum, but at how casually she weaponized communal pressure. "You're blaming me for a delay you created," he said softly. Sandra's jaw tightened. "That is not accurate." Jordan whispered to the stream. "She's losing control of the narrative." The CEO looked down at the 1A hidden beneath the business tag. A seat he had earned. A seat that mattered not because it was luxurious, but because it was his access point to a meeting that would affect millions of travelers. Every delay, every humiliation, chipped away at his purpose. He raised his eyes. Please show me what the system displays. Melissa stepped in quickly. He's questioning internal systems now. Her tone made it sound like a threat. Sandra angled her tablet away from him, away from the camera too. You do not have the right to view back-end screens. That's above passenger clearance. He felt a small fissure open inside him, not anger, not yet, but disappointment so deep it scraped bone. His voice remained quiet. And marking me as business without confirming my tier level, is that procedure? The question hit Sandra harder than any accusation. Passengers felt the shift. They weren't sure who was right, but they could sense that he wasn't the chaotic element in the room. On Jordan's screen, comments poured in. She's lying. Why won't she just show him the screen? System override equals corruption. This is discrimination. He's literally standing still. Sandra stiffened as she read the pressure in the atmosphere not only from the crowd behind her, but from the unseen crowd watching on thousands of phones. She tried another tactic. Sir, if you refuse to cooperate, I will have to escalate protocol. There was that word again, escalate, as if he were a problem to neutralize. He inhaled slowly, letting her words settle into the space between them. His stillness wasn't submission. It was precision, a discipline carved from years of navigating systems that were biased before they were even built. Jordan stepped closer, voice low. She's cornering herself. Keep your calm, you're doing this perfectly. Melissa looked around nervously as the live stream viewer count ticked past 25,000. Sandra pressed on. If we delay, passengers will miss connections. This is a simple resolution. Take the business seat, and we'll sort out the rest later. He turned the diamond tier marker in his fingers, bright metal catching the white fluorescent light. A motif. A reminder. A truth the system was trying to override. My seat, he said quietly, is 1A. I will take that seat, and I'm asking for nothing more than accuracy. Sandra exhaled sharply. Her patience, thinly stretched from the start, finally tore. She raised her voice. Move to business, sir. Now. The gate area fell silent. The outburst wasn't his. It was hers. For the first time, passengers saw the disparity. How calm he was. How volatile the system had become. Jordan said into the camera, and that is the moment everything changes. The air around the gate felt different now, charged, electric, as if the oxygen itself had chosen a side. Sandra's outburst still hung in the silence when the intercom crackled overhead. A hollow, metallic voice came through. Gate B12, this is operations. System indicates override pending. Follow temporary reassignment. Melissa straightened, victorious. Sandra's chin lifted a fraction. The system had spoken, or at least, that's what they wanted everyone to believe. Jordan's live stream jumped past 20,000 viewers in seconds. Override pending, he repeated to his audience. Listen to that phrasing. That doesn't confirm anything. It's a stall tactic. The CEO's eyes flicked to Melissa's tablet as she reopened it. There it was again, the faint yellow banner pulsing at the top of the screen. He knew that banner. He'd helped design the safety logic that governed when such flags were allowed to generate. This wasn't one of those times. That flag cannot trigger without ops pre-verification, he said quietly. Melissa scoffed. Sir, the system doesn't need your interpretation. Sandra added, please stop challenging official procedure. You're disrupting boarding. He wasn't disrupting anything. They were disrupting him. The overhead announcement sharpened. Priority close expected in under 2 minutes. Gate B12. Confirm cabin readiness. Passengers shifted anxiously. A ripple of irritation moved through the crowd aimed not at the agents, but at him. Exactly as Melissa and Sandra intended. Jordan brought his camera closer. Everyone watching, he whispered. Notice how they're using the countdown as leverage. It's pressure, not protocol. Comments flooded in. He knows the system better than them. Override pending equals fake justification. They're forcing him into business to protect the other passenger. This is institutional bias at work. The CEO stood still, posture calm, breath controlled. But inside, he felt the weight of the system straining against him, not just through the staff, but through the cold mechanism of procedure twisted out of shape. Sandra stepped closer, blocking more of the lane with her body. "Sir," she said stiffly, "if you do not comply, we will escalate to airport security. Move to business seating immediately." Jordan whispered to the stream, "They're painting him as dangerous to justify a wrongful downgrade." Passengers murmured, "Just move, man. You're holding everybody up. Why fight the system? Why? Why? Because the system was wrong." He held the diamond tier marker in his hand. A small truth, a small symbol, and yet everyone seemed committed to pretending it didn't exist. He met Sandra's eyes. "I am not refusing," he said evenly. "I am asking for transparency. If the override is valid, show it." Melissa looked genuinely rattled for the first time. "We don't have time for this," she snapped. "Boarding close is coming." The intercom cut in again. "Gate B12, priority close in 1 minute, 30 seconds. A countdown weaponized." Sandra braced her shoulders. "This is your final notice. Accept the temporary seat or leave the lane." He didn't move. Not because he was stubborn, but because compliance would validate their lie. Jordan narrated into the camera, voice tight with anger. "Take a look, everyone. Look who's calm and who's escalating. The man being downgraded is whispering. The people with power are yelling." Melissa tried again. "Sir, we will call security." He remained silent, not intimidated, not cowed, simply unwilling to bend truth for convenience. His silence was louder than their threats. Passengers felt it. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others looked at Melissa and Sandra with new uncertainty. A few even stepped forward instinctively, though they said nothing. Then, the smallest tremor. The CEO closed his eyes briefly. Not as defeat, not as surrender, but as a moment to steady himself against the crushing pressure of a system that refused to see him. Jordan whispered, "This is not okay. They're breaking him down." And yet, he stood. When he opened his eyes, they were clear, steady, unwavering. "Show the system," he said one last time. Melissa hesitated. Just long enough for everyone watching. In the terminal, on the live stream, across 30,000 screens. To see the truth, the system wasn't broken. They were. The terminal lights flickered again as the intercom cut through the rising tension. Jet bridge door closes in 50 seconds. Gate B12. Confirm ready. 50 seconds. The number rang out like a verdict. Melissa seized on it immediately. "Sir, this is your last chance. Move to business, or we'll classify this as an incident." Sandra stepped forward until her shoulder nearly touched his, her presence a physical barrier. Her voice sharpened into something cold, managerial, and absolutely certain of its own righteousness. "You are obstructing the boarding process," she declared. "If you continue, we will call security and remove you from the gate area." He didn't flinch, but the space around him tightened. The aisle narrowing, passengers staring, Melissa raising her chin as if the countdown itself had knighted her with unquestionable authority. Jordan's phone vibrated with notification waves. 45,000 people now watching live. "Everyone see this," Jordan murmured into the camera. "He's standing still. They're the ones escalating." Passengers sensed it too. The emotional tide shifted. No one could articulate what felt wrong, but everyone felt it. Sandra misread the silence as support. She stepped even closer, forcing him back until his shoulder grazed the cool metal wall near the jet bridge entrance. "Sir," she pressed, "cooperate, now." In another context, another lifetime, he might have laughed at how predictable the pattern had become. When systems fail, They lean on intimidation. But he wasn't laughing. He was tired. Not of them, but of the architecture around them. The invisible lattice of assumptions that made them so certain he was the anomaly. He breathed in, slow and steady. "I'm not obstructing you," he said quietly. "I'm asking you to show me the truth." Melissa snapped. "The truth is that you're in the wrong seat." The terminal went still. Passengers froze. Jordan zoomed in slowly. "Say that again," he whispered to the live stream. Melissa's nostrils flared. "You heard me." Jordan angled his camera. To the 48,000 people watching, he's holding the diamond tier marker in his hand. They've refused to show him the system screen for 20 minutes. A ripple of discomfort passed through the crowd. Someone near the back spoke timidly. "He hasn't raised his voice once. Why are you treating him like he's dangerous?" Another passenger added, "Just show him the system. That would solve it." Sandra stiffened. "You are not part of this. Please refrain from interfering." But the passengers weren't retreating anymore. Isolation, the most powerful weapon in quiet discrimination, was slipping from her grasp. The CEO didn't move, didn't shift his weight, didn't push back. But there was a faint tremble in his fingers now, fatigue cracking through his composure like hairline fractures in glass. Jordan caught it. His voice softened on the live stream. "They're wearing him down. Look, he's exhausted." The CEO shut his eyes for half a second. Not defeat. Not surrender. Just the body, remembering that it is human. Sandra saw the moment and struck. "If you continue resisting," she said sharply, "we will not only downgrade you, we will deny you boarding entirely." Gasps rippled across the gate area. Jordan stepped forward, uninvited but unstoppable. "You can't threaten him like that," he said, "not when you haven't shown a single piece of evidence." Melissa barked, "Stay out of it." Jordan didn't blink. 48,000 people disagree. The number ticked upward. 49,300, 49,800, 50,000, 200. Passengers murmured. Someone whispered, "Half the internet is watching." The CEO looked at the faces around him. Some frightened, some angry, some ashamed, and felt the weight of their expectation pressing on the bruise of his dignity. He was so tired, but he was still standing, still breathing, still holding the diamond tier marker, even as his hand trembled. Then the intercom cut through everything. "Gate B12, priority close in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Melissa moved to block him completely. Sandra reached for her radio. Jordan lifted his phone like a torch. The moment the countdown hit 30 seconds, the air around Gate B12 seemed to crack. Not loudly, quietly, like a fault line giving way under decades of pressure. Sandra lifted her radio. Melissa stepped forward to block the CEO completely. Jordan raised his phone, live stream numbers racing upward like a detonating fuse. 78,000, 82,000, 91,000. People were no longer just watching. They were waiting. The CEO held his ground, shoulders square but heavy, the diamond tier marker trembling slightly in his hand. "Sir," Melissa barked, "step away from the priority lane." Sandra added, "Security is on standby. You are out of compliance." Jordan had had enough. He moved before anyone could stop him, straight into the narrow space between the CEO and the staff, arm raised, camera pointed directly at Melissa's tablet. His voice cut through the entire gate. "Melissa, turn the screen around. 90,000 people are watching you. So if the override is real, show it." Gasps rippled across the terminal. Melissa flinched as though struck. Sandra snapped, "Sir, you cannot interfere with staff operations." Jordan didn't budge. "I'm not interfering," he said, loud and steady. "I'm asking for proof, because E asked for proof, and you denied him." The CEO closed his eyes just once, because the weight of this moment felt too sharp, too bright. Not relief. Not victory. Just the unbearable intensity of finally being seen. Melissa pressed the tablet against her chest, shielding it. This data is confidential. Jordan laughed once, humorless. Funny how confidentiality only matters when you're wrong. Viewers flooded the chat. Turn it around. Stop hiding the override. We see everything. Justice. Show the system now. Sandra stepped forward too fast, too aggressively. Her hand snapped out as though she meant to push Jordan's phone down. The terminal froze. Someone shouted, "Don't touch him!" Another yelled, "He's filming legally!" A passenger from business class chimed in, "She's crossing the line!" The crowd had turned. For the first time, the staff felt outnumbered. Jordan's voice dropped to a deadly calm. Turn. The screen. Around. Melissa's face blanched. She looked at Sandra. Sandra looked at her. Because they both knew. If they showed the screen, the lie would be exposed. If they didn't show the screen, the world would assume the worst. Before either woman could decide, the intercom crackled once more. A different voice. Older. Sharper. Authoritative. Gate B12, this is operations. Override input was entered incorrectly. Repeat. Override is invalid. Seat 1A belongs to passenger Hayes. Restore his boarding status immediately. The silence that followed was absolute. Not disbelief. Not confusion. Judgment. Melissa's hand slipped from the tablet. Sandra's radio lowered. Passengers stared at them with a mixture of anger and shame. Then the crowd erupted. Not in cheers, but in something deeper, quieter, more powerful. Vindication. Jordan dropped his phone slightly, letting the live stream capture everyone's reactions. Everyone heard that, he said, breathless. The override was wrong. He had the seat all along. Viewers exploded. Justice. Apologize to him. System exposed. The CEO didn't smile. He didn't even look triumphant. He simply inhaled. A long, trembling breath, as if pulling air into lungs that had been compressed for the past half hour. Melissa froze. Her eyes glistened, not with empathy, not yet, but with the dawning horror of someone realizing they'd misused the system they swore to enforce. Sandra's jaw unclenched. Her voice, when it came, was small. Restore his boarding pass. Melissa peeled the business tag from the CEO's pass with hands that were no longer steady. She held out the original. 1A, unmarred. He reached out slowly, fingers brushing hers. A current passed through the touch. Not forgiveness, but truth. She whispered, "I didn't mean..." He didn't answer. Not yet. It wasn't time. The crowd parted for him as he walked toward the jet bridge. Some nodded. Some touched his arm. Some looked away, ashamed. Jordan filmed voice softer now. This is what happens when a system hides behind its own mistakes. The CEO paused at the entrance to the jet bridge, turning back for a single moment. Not to gloat. Not to punish. The jet bridge hummed softly, a tunnel of muted gray leading toward the aircraft. The echoes of the crowd, the shouts, the announcements, they all faded behind him like a door sealing shut. He took one step forward, then another. But on the third step, something inside him simply slipped. Not a collapse. Not a break. Just a moment when the weight he'd been carrying all this time pressed too hard against everything he'd held upright. He braced a hand against the wall, the cool metal steadying him as his breath trembled out of sync. Jordan noticed first. He lowered his phone, ending the live stream mid-surge. The terminal behind them dimmed into silence as tens of thousands of virtual spectators vanished from the moment. "Hey," Jordan whispered, stepping closer. "It's over. You can breathe now." He nodded, but the air didn't come easily. The diamond tier marker sat in his other hand, warm from the heat of his palm. Not a symbol of victory. Not right now. Just something to hold on to. Footsteps approached tentatively. He didn't need to turn to know it was Melissa. Her posture had changed entirely. No rigid shoulders. No lifted chin. Just a woman who had run out of confidence and excuses at the same time. "Mr. Hayes?" she whispered. He straightened, but not fully. Just enough to show he could. Melissa swallowed. She looked at the marker in his hand, then at the floor, then at him, eyes trembling with something deeper than fear of consequence. "My father," she said, voice thin, "missed the chance to interview for a job he needed because a gate agent told him he didn't belong in the lane he'd earned." He froze. The air in the jet bridge stilled. She continued, voice cracking, "He never recovered from that. Swore the system treated people differently depending on how they looked." She wiped under one eye. "I promised myself I would never let a wrong boarding happen on my watch. I guess I overcorrected. I judged too fast, too hard." He stared at her, not angry, not vindictive, just quietly devastated. Because he knew this story. Intimately. "My father," he said softly, "lost a contract because of something similar. A misread. A suspicion that didn't have to exist." A thin breath escaped him. He never recovered either. The words hung between them, two wounds meeting in the narrow space of a metal tunnel. Melissa pressed her lips together until they trembled. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was trying to protect something that hurt me first." He looked at her, really looked at her. Not as the woman who humiliated him, but as the daughter of a man who'd been humiliated too. And in that moment, the anger inside him turned into something else. Something older. Something tired. He spoke gently. "Procedure is supposed to protect people, Melissa, not repeat the harm." She nodded, shoulders shaking once. I know, and I failed at that today." Jordan took a step back, giving them space. The CEO exhaled, finally steady. Not fully healed, just steady. Behind them, the rumble of boarding resumed faintly. The world was moving again, but slower, softer, as though aware of what had almost broken inside this metal corridor. Melissa looked at him one last time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not yelling or shaming me or using your position, whatever it is, to crush me the way I almost crushed you." He didn't reply. Not because he refused to, but because the moment needed silence more than sound. They stood there, two people carrying different versions of the same wound. And for the first time today, the system wasn't between them. Just truth. And the faint echo of pain neither of them had deserved. The inside of the aircraft glowed in warm gold, a stark contrast to the storm that had raged at the gate. Passengers in first class turned as the CEO stepped in slowly, steadily. Some looked embarrassed, others grateful, others simply relieved the chaos was over. He didn't meet their eyes. Not out of pride. Out of exhaustion. Seat 1A waited for him like a memory restored. He placed the diamond tier marker gently on the console, no longer a shield, no longer proof. Just an object returning to its rightful home. Jordan hovered at the doorway, hesitating. "You sure you don't want me to keep filming?" he asked. The CEO shook his head. "No, this part isn't for the world." Jordan nodded and backed away. "Then I'm glad you stood your ground. People saw something today they won't forget." The CEO offered a quiet, tired smile. "Make sure they remember the lesson, not me." Jordan disappeared down the jet bridge. Moments later, Melissa appeared, eyes red, posture small. She didn't cross the threshold. She just stood at the curtain, hands clasped, as though asking permission to breathe. "I've reported the override error," she said softly. "Ops wants to speak with you." "Here?" he asked gently. "No, outside. But I wanted to say something first." He waited. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said, voice trembling. "But I need you to know, I wasn't trying to protect a system that excluded you." A weak breath. "I was trying to protect one that excluded someone I loved, and ended up repeating the same harm, to someone who didn't deserve it." He studied her face. No defensiveness, just recognition. "You're not the first person to misjudge me," he said quietly, "and you won't be the last. What matters is what you do after the misjudgment." Melissa nodded, a tear escaping despite her attempt to stop it. He added, "Don't let this moment turn you bitter. Let it turn you better." Her shoulders shook once. "Thank you. Thank you." Then she stepped aside as another figure approached. The Director of Operations, tablet in hand, expression grave. "Mr. Hayes," the director said, "I want to formally acknowledge the wrongful override and the procedural misconduct you experienced." He didn't reply, waiting for the rest. "We've already frozen manual downgrades across all gates," the director continued. "A full audit will begin tonight. All tier-based reroutes will now require dual authentication, and frontline staff will undergo new training on bias-based escalation." Melissa flinched at that, but didn't argue. The CEO nodded slowly. "That's a start. We'd also like to request your input," the director added, "given your expertise." He almost laughed. A dry, disbelieving sound. "You don't need my expertise," he said. "You need your people to see passengers as humans before they see them as tiers." The director swallowed hard. Understood. The conversation ended there, not with triumph, but with truth. A truth the system could no longer pretend not to hear. Melissa stepped back as the director walked away, leaving only the low hum of the aircraft and the soft rustle of boarding behind them. Before she left, Melissa whispered, "You deserved better today." He didn't answer. He just picked up the diamond tier marker again, felt its weight, its warmth, its steady, quiet presence. Not proof. Not armor. Just a reminder. He belonged. He finally sank into seat 1A, letting the leather cradle the exhaustion he had held back for too long. Outside, the jet bridge detached with a soft metallic thud. A new announcement filled the cabin. Cabin secure, preparing for departure. He closed his eyes. Not to escape, to release, to let the day settle into memory instead of wound. As the aircraft pushed back, he turned the diamond tier marker once more between his fingers. Then, with a long breath, he whispered the line that would echo long after this flight landed. "I don't need a marker to prove who I am." The plane lifted, and just as quiet, imperfect, human lifted with it. How did this story land with you? What emotion stayed with you the longest? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this journey moved you, tap like, share it with someone who needs the reminder, and subscribe for more stories about truth, humanity, and the quiet battles people fight every day.